This is CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Find out more and open an account online at telhio.org. Now here's your host, Bob McElligott.
Matt Duchene, the hero on Saturday night, actually on Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, when the Blue Jackets evened their best-of-7 series with the Boston Bruins. They evened it at one game apiece after the Blue Jackets won in double overtime on that Matt Duchene power play goal. And the final score was 3-2. 2 games, both ending 3-2, both going to overtime, one into double overtime. Welcome to CBJ in 30 Live, presented by Telhio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott. Today, it is Monday, and as always, I take your questions on Monday when I open the Monday Mailbag, which I will do in just a few minutes. Very interesting stuff today. Very interesting. It's kind of all over the map, but there is one theme that is solidifying throughout the mailbag today, and I'll tell you about that in just a few minutes. But what a game for the Blue Jackets on Saturday night. It started late. It didn't get started. They didn't drop the puck until almost 8:30. They didn't finish the game until almost 4 hours later, and it was something. It really was, and it really just, again, shows you what this series is going to be. In the first 2 games, we've seen exactly what this series is going to be, and it's only going to get tougher. And John Tortorella talked about that extensively after the game was over. He said, we've got to get better. We've got to get better. And they do, because the Boston Bruins aren't going away. The Boston Bruins are going to get better. They're going to keep coming, and the Blue Jackets have got to be able to match that. And it's not going to be easy, but it has to be done. It's just that simple. But what a game that was. And, you know, they came out, both teams came out throwing the body and hitting. And after they hit somebody, the next thing they would do is hit somebody and then hit them again. The Boston Bruins were upset with Riley Nash. Riley Nash hit David Krejci in Game 1. Krejci didn't play the final 10 minutes or so of the third period. He was questionable for Game 2. Not really. I didn't think there was ever any question that he was going to play, and he did play. He returned. But the Boston Bruins were upset with that. In fact, I think there was a quote where somebody said he never hit anybody like that when he was here. Okay, well, he did now, and it just happened to be against you guys. So sorry about that. Sorry about your luck. But they came out looking for him, and they got him early in the game. Got him with a good open ice hit that forced Riley Nash to leave the game for a few minutes. He had to go back and get his bearings again. That's how hard he got hit. He missed a couple of shifts, but he came back and he finished the game. And that's important because, again, that Jenner, Nash, and Dubinsky line continues to be a factor for the Columbus Blue Jackets. It is the line that settles down everything. It is the straight-ahead line that just goes out there and does the simple job, and it sets the tone for everybody else. Whenever they start getting away from things, those guys go out and set the tone. And I thought they did that the other night because one thing the Blue Jackets were doing in the first period, they started to go out of their way to put hits on the Boston Bruins, almost too much out of their way. Almost get yourself out of position to make sure that you get a hit on somebody. And that was something that could have been a problem. Really could have been. If they would have continued in that vein, they would have been in trouble as the game wore on. But they got back to what they do. They got back to just playing the game. And there were a ton of hits on both sides. It was a ton of physical play. That's just what we thought going into the series. But it settled down. It turned into just good old-fashioned playoff hockey. The Boston Bruins get the first goal of the game on a power play. Josh Anderson winds up in the box. They get a power play goal. They go up 1-0. And then, so it's 1-0 at the end of one period of play. At the end of the second period, there's a big scrum, and Brad Marchand takes a bad penalty. Takes a dumb penalty, bad penalty. When the second period starts, the Blue Jackets are on the power play for the first 2 minutes. And they capitalize on that power play, and they even score at 1 goal apiece. But then it's only a few minutes later that the Bruins go down and they get kind of a fluke goal. Puck off the end boards from behind the net, hits off a skate, pops up in the air, winds up in the net, and all of a sudden Boston has the momentum back very quickly. It's a 2-1 game. And then the Blue Jackets are on a power play. On a face-off, Josh Anderson gets his stick up and hits Sean Corrali just under the left eye, cuts him. He's bleeding. And immediately Anderson goes to the penalty box for 4 minutes. a very crucial time of the game. Very crucial, because now there was about a minute gone in the Blue Jackets power play. So now you're looking at having to kill off 3 minutes worth of Boston Bruins power play time, and you're going to skate 4-on-4 for a minute. So the time was crucial. The Blue Jackets needed to have something happen, and they made it happen. And they made it happen with the help of the Boston Bruins. In fact, both goals the Blue Jackets scored in regulation, it was the Bruins that screwed it up, and the Blue Jackets took advantage of their screw-ups. The first one on the power play goal that Panarin got, it was Zdeno Chara, the captain of the Boston Bruins, who tried to clear the puck up the middle of the ice, and he gave it away to Cam Atkinson. That kept the play alive in the zone, and Panarin eventually scored. On the second goal, it was Charlie Coyle, who was a hero 2 nights before, throws the puck off the backhand right up the middle of the ice and right to Seth Jones. He didn't have a teammate in the area code, and he gave it right to Seth Jones, who slid it to Artemi Panarin, who put a beautiful shot over the shoulder of Tuukka Rask and up underneath the crossbar and tied the game at 2 goals apiece. That was so clutch. 1 minute of 4-on-4, and again, they throw the dagger and they take advantage of it. And then they kill off 3 minutes worth of power play time for Boston. Turning point of the game. No doubt about it. If Boston scores on that power play, who knows what happens. And then regulation doesn't settle it. And then we go to overtime. And Nick Foligno's got a chance in the first overtime in a 2-on-1, and he can't bury it. Tuukka Rask makes a great save. And then Sergei Bobrovsky goes crazy with saves. Patrice Bergeron I thought Patrice Bergeron was ending the game. I really did. He's standing in front of Bob. There's a shot. There's a rebound. It's coming right back to him. And I'm thinking, this is over. There's no way Sergei can get into position. But he did. And it was helped by Cam Atkinson kind of hooking the stick or the hands of Patrice Bergeron for a few seconds and getting away with it. And Bobrovsky was able to get over. Bergeron takes a shot. Bobrovsky takes it off the left bicep and just kind of shrugs his shoulder and lets it roll up the arm and hit him in the side of the mask, and he keeps it out of the net. He was terrific. He was fantastic. And then finally, double overtime. It's Bergeron, of all people. He's their best faceoff guy. He's their best penalty killer. He trips Seth Jones. He winds up in the penalty box, and the Blue Jackets get the Duchesne goal to end the game and even the series. That was a huge, huge win. To come back home down 2-0, it's possible to get out of that hole, but it will be tough. But now they go into Boston, they get the split. And you know the Bruins are thinking the same thing coming in here tomorrow night. They're thinking, look, we just got to get one. We don't have to get both. If we go back home, make it a best of 3, tied at 2 apiece, we're okay with that. And you know that they are. But the Blue Jackets have home ice in the next 2 games, and they need to find a way to take advantage of that home ice and get 2 wins. It's as simple as that. You know, it's not simple to do. It's simple to say, but that's the job at hand. Just get 2 wins at home, and you take full control of the series. Doesn't mean you win it. Still got to go back to Boston at least once, hopefully only once. But you have a chance to take control of the series now, and that's the position the Blue Jackets put themselves in with that huge win the other night. So it was fun to watch. The longer it went on, the more nervous I got about it. I thought Boston got better in the overtimes than they were in the second and third period of that game. But again, it was Bobrovsky who was the star, and then the Blue Jackets. The other stars, you look at the game-winning goal. Who was involved in it? Jones, Atkinson, Panarin, Duchesne. All 4 of them. And only Atkinson and Panarin get the assist. Jones gets held out, but, man, he made 2 plays along the blue line that were ridiculous to keep the puck in the zone. He ranged all the way over to his right and went to the boards by the Bruins bench, and he kept 1 in. And then it was only moments later he had to come all the way back across to the other side and keep the puck in at the left point. He was terrific. Absolutely terrific. And that's why when I had a question the other day that questioned Jones and Werenski and their plays and their mistakes in their own end, and I told you you're out of your mind, well, if you didn't think you were out of your mind, see Exhibit A, the way they played on Saturday night, and especially number 3, who was outstanding. All right, I'm going to start getting to your questions here today on this Monday Mailbag edition of the show. But first, I'm going to tell you about all the fine folks over at Ohio Credit Union and the good job that they do with your money. That's right. You need to feel that your money is invested in the right place, no matter what it is, whether it's just that you want to have you need a checking account, and they have like 3 different checking accounts with different benefits. So you want to make sure you have the right benefits and things that you're looking for. They can do that. Savings account, they can do that too. What about you want to put your money in a CD, get a bit of a quick return on interest? They can do that for you. And it's not just if you're an individual, by the way. They do this for businesses as well. They've got personal loans. They've got business loans. They got it all. I mean, Tel Ohio Credit Union has the services that you need, and maybe you just don't know about it. So you can find out by going online to telohio.org and checking out their website. All the information is right there. Also a live chat option for you. If you have anything specific that you would like to ask of somebody, you can do that. Or you can stop by any local office as you're driving around town. Tel Ohio Credit Union is open to everyone in Central and Southwestern Ohio, and they are federally insured by NCUA. So let me get to your questions in the Monday Mailbag. And the questions come to me via Twitter at Bobby Mac Sports. And, again, I've got a bunch of them today. And there are themes. There are themes. Let me just start right at the beginning. Alex Nuttall says, can you replace the announcers for the rest of the Blue Jackets game? But on a serious note, how does the experience of calling playoff games this year resonate with you? Is it exciting to see some success after all of the years of being with the Blue Jackets? First of all, Alex, I can replace those national announcers. All you got to do is turn down the sound and turn up the radio. Jody, Shelley, and I are right there. And I know a lot of people have been doing that because they've been sending me messages about it. So, yes, I can do that. You can do it and use me to do it. It's very easy. The experience of calling playoff games, how does it resonate with me? I mean, it's great. You still want to be working at this time of the year. You get to the second round for the first time. And the one thing about it is, for me, is as you go into Boston and you go into the media room and you see there's just many more high-profile people around. The network guys or some of the top management guys and scouts from other teams, a lot of them around. In fact, I had one of those pinch-me experiences the other night. Walked into the media room in Boston, and I was looking around, and somebody said hello to me, and I was like, how does that guy know who I am? Am I in the National Hockey League doing the Stanley Cup playoffs right now? Is this really happening, or is this a dream? And, it's surreal in many ways, and it's so much fun, and it's great. And I know the players are having a blast, and they have some really high aspirations for themselves. And they should, because they've got a lot of work to do in this series, but I hope they can see what the potential is to get through this series. I hope they can see how good they really are and what they really have a chance to do, because I think they have a chance to do some terrific things. And for the ride, because it's a blessing. And, man, is it fun. I'll get back to more of your questions, and then coming up a little bit later on today's show, Steve Goldstein. His normal job, television play-by-play for the Florida Panthers. But during the playoffs, he's been doing work with the Westwood One radio network, NHL on NBC Radio, and he has called a couple of games, and it includes his list includes the one that the Blue Jackets played on Saturday night in Boston. So I'll talk with him about that coming up in just a bit. But again, your questions continue with the Monday Mailbag edition of CBJ and 30 Live, presented by Tel Ohio Credit Union. Blue Jackets and Bruins tomorrow night, Game 3 of this best-of-7 series. It's tied at 1 game apiece, 7 o'clock at Nationwide Arena. And if you have tickets, great. If you don't have tickets, you can find them at BlueJackets.com. But actually, if you do have tickets and you haven't looked into one of the great VIP parties that are going on, you should really do that. There are 2 of them. One is the High Bank Distillery VIP party. There's also the Great Lakes Brewing Company party. And they both take place before the game. You get into the arena early. You can get in before everybody else. These parties are in their own private spaces, and they are all-inclusive when it comes to your food and beverage. One price, eat, drink, get in early. Right? You cannot beat that. There's no way. Want to find out more, just go to bluejackets.com/playoff party. But you should do that. What the heck? Why not? It's going to be a Tuesday. What a great way to get the week started, right? Come to a playoff game, get in early, all your food and drinks included. You got your own private little party there. I don't know how you can beat that. It's like a broken drum. You can't beat it, right? Absolutely. All right, let me get back to your questions here on this Monday Mailbag edition of CBJ and 30. I told you earlier there is a theme in today's questions, and I'm just going to go right to the theme right now. And I will set it up by telling you something that most of you already know. Alexander Wenberg returned to the lineup for the Blue Jackets on Saturday night. He took the place of Ryan Dzingel, who was a healthy scratch. Wenberg hasn't played in weeks for the Blue Jackets, but he got back in there on Saturday. So that is what the theme is on many of these questions. I'm just going to read a bunch of them, and then I will give you my answers, because the answer is, well, it's kind of all-inclusive. Where shall I begin? How about with Jared? Wenberg played a pretty solid defensive game as normal, but the kid seems hell-bent on playing the same way offensively as he did to get benched. Why will he not learn? That's from Jared. Next one is by Joker Smoker 311. Just wondering why Ryan Dzingel was out of the lineup. Here's one from Jody. If I didn't hear the announcer say Wenberg, I didn't really notice him on the ice. What are your thoughts? And one more from Craig, who says, does Wenberg keep playing? I don't buy the sit Texier thing. I've been seeing personally, hold on. I don't buy the sit Texier thing I've been seeing. Personally, want Dzingel in for Wenberg, but understand the penalty kill and more consistent defense. What's your take? Okay, here we go. Let me answer your questions with a question, first of all, okay? And here's that question. What has Ryan Dzingel done that makes you think that he absolutely, positively, without a doubt, has to stay in the lineup? That's my question to you. And I'll answer my own question. I haven't seen anything that makes that absolutely necessary. I haven't. I haven't seen anything from it. He's playing on a line with Duchesne and Atkinson. And, well, it has been. Things got mixed around a little bit the other night. He had been playing on that line. Duchesne had 7 points in the first round. Atkinson's doing his job out there. I guess Dzingel was playing some defensively. He's not adding offense right now, is my point. And I'll tell you this, if it comes down to defense, as a forward, I like Alexander Wenberg. And apparently so does John Tortorella. Now, is this just a wake-up call to Ryan Dzingel? Or what is it? That's what we're going to find out. But my thoughts on how Wenberg played, I didn't mind him. Now, I understand Jared's question. There was a time he was coming in with the puck on his stick, and he should have shot it, and he passed it. And it drives me nuts, and it drives you nuts, and it drives the coaches nuts. And I don't know why he doesn't continue to – I don't know why he continues to do that. I don't know why he doesn't shoot the puck. I can't tell you. I cannot come up with a reason for that. But I didn't mind him at all. I thought he did a pretty good job, especially for a guy that hasn't played in 3 weeks or a month. And he handled it the right way, and he came in, he did whatever they asked him to do. And I thought he was responsible. I noticed him. I noticed things that he was doing. And on the penalty kill, I told you, they killed off a 3-minute 3 minutes worth of power play. They gave up that first power play goal, and then it was shutdown city on the penalty kill. And against a team like the Boston Bruins, and in the playoffs, where do you win and lose games on special teams? The Blue Jackets win that game on special teams. If the Bruins get another power play goal, maybe they win that game. So I'm sorry. But Ryan Dzingel, for me, is not showing me enough to stay in the lineup over Alexander Wenberg. And I'm not the only one. The head man feels the same way. Now, let me just kind of move this toward Alexander Texier a little bit while we're at it, because I know that's another subject that people want to talk about. Because Texier didn't play, I don't know when it was. Was it the third period when he made that mistake? Early in the third period, he made the mistake. I mean, he coughs up a terrible he coughs a puck up. It's a terrible turnover, and there's a great opportunity for the Boston Bruins to score there. And then he never played after that. But what are you going to expect? I mean, what do you expect? This kid comes in at 19 years old. They went 6-0 with him in the lineup in his first 6 games. This is a different game. This is hockey he's never played in his life. playoff style against the Boston Bruins, this is not the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the Boston Bruins are targeting this kid. They're trying to force him into making mistakes, and they are having success. Now, does that mean he should immediately come out of the lineup? No, not necessarily. You got to learn on the fly. He still does a lot of good things. But in that game, at that point, John Tortorella felt that he couldn't use him anymore. And again, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Even if you talked about taking him out and putting Dzingel in, let's just use that for an example. I mean, Texier has got a chance to score you a goal. Very good offensive talent. Do I think he has a better chance of getting a goal than Ryan Dzingel at this moment in time? I do. I do. And if you're gonna take him out, do you put that guy back in, or do you go with a Hannikainen type of a guy, and go with some grit and speed and all that stuff? Because Hannikainen is built to play in this kind of a series. So there's lots of questions. I don't necessarily think that Texier needs to come out. He made a huge mistake. He made it at a bad time of the game. He's got to learn. He's 19 years old playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He was playing in Europe a couple of months ago. He was playing in Cleveland a couple of weeks ago. Now he's playing the Boston Bruins. You got to learn on the fly sometimes. And then when there's no room for you to make an error, then you got to sit. And that's just the way it is. But this whole Wenberg thing, I had zero problem with that. And I know a lot of people are down on him just because he's Alex Wenberg. And just because he hasn't panned out to what you think he should be for being a first-round pick to this point. And you're still upset that a couple of years ago he had a great season and then he has had a couple of not-so-great seasons. I get it. I understand. I totally understand. When he was out of the lineup, he deserved to be out of the lineup. Came back in the other night. I thought he did a good job. If it were me and I was evaluating and I was deciding who was going to be in the next game, he's staying in. I still think what he did on Saturday is more than what Ryan Dzingel did on Thursday. And that's personally. That's me. We'll see what John Tortorella thinks. We'll know, well, maybe by practice today, but certainly by game time tomorrow. I'll answer more of your questions in just a bit, but coming up next, Steve Goldstein, who was calling the game on the Westwood One radio network, calling it nationally, NHL and NBC radio on Saturday. Watched the Blue Jackets and the Bruins. He also called one of the games in Tampa, so he is well-versed on the Blue Jackets and how they're playing, and I'll talk with him next as we continue with CBJ in 30 Live, presented by Ohio Credit Union. Blue Jackets are back at home tomorrow night, Game 3 of their second-round series with the Boston Bruins. Series is tied at one game apiece. The next two are going to be played at Nationwide Arena. 7 o'clock tomorrow night, 7:30 on Thursday night. The times are all over the place. And it's because of TV. We all know it's because of TV. And so just make the adjustment and move on. Right now, I'm with a guy that, TV is his day job, I guess you could say. Normally is calling the play-by-play on television for the Florida Panthers. But now here in the playoffs, he's doing some national radio broadcasts for Westwood One. And he's also the guy I hold personally responsible for the Blue Jackets playing into double overtime on Saturday. And that is Steve Goldstein. Good morning, Steve.
You know, I am the king of double overtime, Bob. The Panthers, the last two times made the playoffs was 2012 and 16. People may not remember. The Devils made the Cup that year. They beat the Panthers in Game 7 in double overtime. Then the Panthers-Islanders series, remember the Tavares goal to tie it, and then Game 6, he won it in double overtime. So I've had plenty of double overtime experience, and I just figured that these two teams are so close that you were going to have to work extra late Saturday night. So sorry to say I was right.
That's all right. Well, the funny thing is, so when I got to the arena on Saturday, went to the media room to eat beforehand, I saw Steve, and the first thing he says is, well, I just hope this doesn't go to overtime, because there's been an overtime game every day, and the afternoon game was ended in regulation, so we've got to get this done in regulation. So you kind of jinxed it.
Yeah, they finally broke the streak yesterday with 7 straight days in the Stanley Cup playoffs after the Jackets win in Boston of overtime games, and then last night and yesterday afternoon finally broke that streak, although they were 1-goal games. So the playoffs have been awesome.
It sounds like when you first say that, you go 7 days, every one of them with an overtime game. The first thought is, that's amazing. That's incredible that happens. But if you take a second thought, and the way these games are played, and they're so tight and they're so close and the teams are so evenly matched and nobody wants to make a mistake, maybe it's not as surprising as it seems to be initially, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Look, these teams that are there, I mean, you can make the case that before the season started, of the 8 that are left, okay, and everybody can be honest, right? Everybody either, predicts or just in your own mind, okay, who's going to be, the teams, the final 8 that make it. I'm not sure many people had more than 1, maybe 2, I would think anyway, 3 max of the remaining 8 teams. So, they're all playing that kind of style of not wanting to make mistakes. It was a little more wide open out west, with San Jose. They played some high-scoring games, but, you look at that Carolina Islander game yesterday and in game 1, and, of course, the Bruins-Jackets series, the first 2 games, it's tooth and nail. It's a bounce here, a bounce there. These games can go either way.
Well, you've seen the Blue Jackets twice in these playoffs now, calling games for Westwood One, the national radio broadcast. You saw the first game in Tampa, and you saw the second game in Boston. And coming back a couple of weeks after watching them the first time, what are your impressions on this Blue Jackets team?
Well, first off, my first impression is, Bob, if he's not the best, he's in the top handful of defensemen in the NHL. Seth Jones has just emerged as a superstar in every facet, defensively, offensively, his amount of ice time, his calmness, both on and off the ice, by the way, and his confidence. And you got to give him a ton of credit. Obviously, when players get that good, I like to give some credit anyway. Most of it goes to the player, but some credit to the guys around him. So I think John Tortorella, the staff, even Zach Werenski, his partner, all deserve some of it. But Jones has become a bona fide superstar. That's one of the things that struck me. The other thing is, John Tortorella really in most situations, except when you're behind, obviously, you're going to put Panarin and Atkinson and top guys out there. Duchesne is having a real good run here. But you could play any one of the Blue Jackets lines in any situation. I mean, I really love that Jenner, Dubinsky, Nash line, especially in this series against a team like Boston, because they can grind it out. Like the Bruins, their big advantage is that fourth line. I mean, Achari can score some goals. They're tough. Columbus completely neutralized it. So the things that struck me is Jones is a flat-out superstar, and John Tortorella, through all the, ups and downs, and I don't need to tell everybody in Columbus, you guys know better than I do of everything that has gone on this year with team meetings, keeping everybody together, pulling the rope in the right direction. They're really doing that, and they've got as good a chance as anybody as long as Bob keeps doing what he's doing in goal of winning the Stanley Cup.
No, absolutely. That's a great point. When you were talking earlier about how of the 8 teams that are left, how many would you have picked? I think probably Boston in the East and San Jose in the West, and everything else is a complete surprise right now as to who's in. Talking with Steve Goldstein, he's called a couple of Blue Jackets playoff games here on the national radio broadcast on Westwood One. This series, it's funny because, hockey used to be a real rough and tumble game, and now it's more based on speed and skill, and you don't see as much hitting, and you certainly don't see it as consistently. But what about this series? I mean, this is a throwback, and it's not, 5 or 6 fights a game like it used to be in the old days, but this is a good old-fashioned physical series, isn't it?
And, Bob, I even like it better than when we had the fights. Fights are fine. I mean, I'm all up, for a fight. I'm always excited for a fight. I like it in the game. But this is better to me because this is just 2 teams that are just heavy. And, every good hit is not resulting in the pushing and shoving in a whistle. It's, hey, nice hits in the first period the other night. I think it was 20-19, wasn't it? We had 39 hits in the first period alone. So you're right. It's old-fashioned. I think there's a lot of reasons for it. First of all, that's just the way Boston plays. That's ingrained in them. Cam Neely runs the team. You still got that core base of hardcore guys. And when they bring players in, like the Chris Wagners and bring up guys like Achari, I mean, this is the way the Boston Bruins play. This is the way they'll always play, even though it's not the big bad Bruins getting, into a dozen fights a game. And obviously Columbus wants to play that way. I mean, John Tortorella, like I said, like him, dislike him, whatever, all the side stuff. The guy has proven in his NHL career he's a great coach. He's one of the greatest American coaches ever, and I think he's a Hall of Fame coach. So it doesn't surprise me that this is the model of the way both of these franchises have really built their teams. I mean, I love guys, Nick Foligno and Josh Anderson. You got to love the way those guys play. So it's kind of like, wills are colliding in this series. And as a just, as an impartial observer, to me, it's a great brand of hockey. I love watching it. I hope it goes 7 because these games are just tough and physical, and what these guys are going through and putting themselves through is unbelievable. And by the way, the winner of the series, it shows you how hard it is, Bob, to win the Cup. They're only halfway there. It's amazing.
No, absolutely right. And you alluded to the other series that's going on in the East, where Carolina now has a 2-0 lead over the New York Islanders, as that series is ready to go to Carolina. And you look at this series, like, to me, if the Blue Jackets find a way to get through the Boston Bruins, it wouldn't be easy to get past either the Islanders or the Carolina Hurricanes. But I would think that, when it comes to tough and physical play, this is the one right here. This is the one you got to get through.
I couldn't agree more. First off, when it comes to the just flat out talent and maybe psychologically getting over it, Tampa was the one, right? I mean, to beat them was unbelievable. I remember the morning of Game 1, I was talking to Matt Duchene, and I kind of brought up, in the pregame interview that we taped, how do you go through this mentally with a team that's done what they've done? And I threw the word underdog in there, and he shot me a look like, I told him that someone just, robbed his house and he has no money in his bank account. He did not want to hear it. After that first period, they came out and played that way. I believe – here's why I think Columbus is going to go to the Cup. I think they're going to get – I think they're going to beat Boston, and I think that is the worst will be over, and I think they'll beat the Islanders or Carolina. I think they're going to do it because I think they have the style, they have the physical will, and I truly believe they believe that they're the best team in the East. I don't think they would have beaten Tampa if they didn't believe that they could beat Tampa, and I know they believe they can beat Boston, even though it's going to be grueling, it's going to be brutal. But obviously, you look at these games and, they're one way or the other. And in those situations, Bob, I go with the goaltender I like the best. And right now, if I had my money and I had to play a game at, 9:05 this morning, I'm taking Sergei Bobrovsky over Tuukka Rask.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more because Bob has just, he came into these playoffs with so many questions, especially about his playoff history, and he has answered those questions with authority is what he has done. So it's been really fun to watch. Steve, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. It was great to see you, and I hope the Blue Jackets do continue, and if they do, I know I'll see you more.
You will if they keep on winning. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Steve Goldstein, he is the television voice of the Florida Panthers, but during the playoffs, he's been doing the national radio broadcast for the NHL on the Westwood One radio network. Coming up next, I'm going to answer more of your questions. It's a Monday Mailbag edition of CBJ and 30 Live, presented by Ohio Credit Union. Blue Jackets are back at home tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, Game 3 against the Boston Bruins. Get your tickets by going to BlueJackets.com. And guess what? If you want to come down and watch the game, you don't even need a ticket. Really. Starting at 4 o'clock, there is a plaza party tomorrow, presented by Nationwide, right outside of Nationwide Arena. And there will also be screens there. We'll be showing the game outside to anybody that doesn't have a ticket. How about that? So you can come down and enjoy the atmosphere and the experience and watch the game outside the arena if you do not have a ticket. John Poston says, was the Boston game as quiet as it sounded on TV? Brandon Dubinsky certainly seemed to think so. Can't wait for tomorrow night and Nationwide Arena to be rocking. John, that's a good question. Now, I have headphones on during the game. I thought it was loud on Thursday, and I think I do agree with Brandon Dubinsky. I don't think it was as loud on Saturday as it was on Thursday. I know this, that last game that was played at Nationwide Arena, that was loud. That was, even with headsets on, it was loud. And I love Dubinsky's interview. He looks in the camera. It's like, it was, I wish he would have just stayed fixated on the camera, like a WWE interview, right? That was like The Rock kind of an interview right there. He's kind of looking at the camera. When he goes, I know it's going to be louder than it was here. And that is just fuel. Fuel to the fire. Fuel to the fire. One more question today. Ian says, I never thought this would have to be debated, but are Boston fans worse than Pittsburgh's? Ian, I can answer this in one word. Yes. Yes. And I can tell you why. They're New Englanders. They're from Boston. And that's not a rip. It's just the mentality. It's that East Coast hard edge. Pittsburgh, you cannot like the fans there. The fans in Pittsburgh are spoiled. They've been so spoiled with what that team has done in the last couple of years, they've forgotten about the bad times there, right? That's why they get on my nerves, And I know many of them. They get on my nerves because they're so spoiled. They think everything should come easy. In Boston, they're just hard-edged. Philly, New York, Boston, that's the way people are. And then when they start losing to a team like Columbus, you think they're not going to be as if you're backing them into a corner? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So, in my opinion, you're asking me, they're much worse than Pittsburgh. At the end of the day, if you get a Pittsburgh fan and you challenge them, I think they back down a little bit. They're still close enough to Midwest to be nice. The Boston people, absolutely not. All right, well, thanks for your questions. As always, you can always tweet me at Bobby Mac Sports. I'd like to thank Steve Goldstein for joining me on today's show. It's the Blue Jackets and the Boston Bruins continuing their series at Nationwide Arena tomorrow at 7. I will be back with you tomorrow for another edition of this show. Until then, I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.